Excellent, I think we're all here. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me along today. And thank you, Tia, and that lunch was really, really useful. Thank you. I suppose it's been a while since I've actually stood in front of a proper audience and given a presentation. I've spent the last few years looking at a computer screen with, my slides and various people's heads. So it's actually lovely to be able to see people in 3D. So let's hope that continues. I'm Kelly Ostler-Coyle and I'm Head of Communications at Flood Re. Today I'll be talking to you about who Flood Re are, the challenges we face, and our new initiative, Build Back Better, which launched in April this year. So firstly, who are we? What's our purpose? So on our website and everything that gets sent round, and I think even in your bags, our purpose will say that Flood Re's purpose is to promote and enable the availability and affordability of flood insurance for eligible homes and to manage over its lifetime the transition to affordable market for household flood insurance where prices reflect the risks of flooding. That's very nice, but what does that actually mean? So Flood Re was an initiative that was set up in the wake of the 2007 floods that we saw right across Britain. It was highlighted that there was a big issue in the insurance market to be able to get flood insurance, to have affordable excesses, and there really was a problem with the market. It took a while for Flood Re to come into existence, lots of toing and froing between the insurance industry and the government. And so we were set up between both of them, the insurance industry and the government, in 2016. And we're set up for 25 years. Our purpose is to make sure that people can now get flood insurance. And we've, in the 6 years that we've been properly up and running, nearly 7 years, we've insured 500,000 households. And affordability, we've taken down the cost and the excess massively. So our excess is £250, not the thousands that I was seeing when I was first in insurance many, many years ago in 2007. And transition, this is the big one. This is the really hard topic for us, the one that we've got to grasp. And that's in our life cycle, which is only 17 years, which is probably about 2.5 governments. We need to be able to be in a position to leave the market and leave it in a better position than when we came. That means we want to make sure that flood risk is managed, people's homes are protected, so that the flood insurance market can actually work. So essentially, Flood Re is a sticking plaster for a market failure in the insurance industry back before we existed. So how we work. We are business to business. We don't do anything with consumers. Well, in terms of selling products, that is. You go online or over the phone with your broker or your insurance company to buy your insurance. You don't do it through Flood Re. All the general insurance companies that write domestic home policies in this country pay a levy to us, which is what we then put in a pot to pay claims. When you buy your insurance, your home insurance with flood on it, the insurer will decide if your risk is too risky and they want to give it to us. When you make your claim, you make it just in the same way as you would make a normal insurance claim, and then we reimburse the insurance company. So the customer doesn't have any direct dealings with Flood Re. We're all behind the scenes. So who's eligible for Flood Re? It's probably easier to tell you who's not eligible. So we don't cover any houses built after the 1st of January 2009. And that's a really important distinction because when we were set up, what we didn't want, and the government obviously didn't want, is houses to be built in floodplains without adequate protection in place, knowing that Flood Re would just cover them. So it was put there on purpose so that the building industry didn't carry on building. Well, we know what's happened. People are still building on floodplains. We don't cover businesses. We are purely for domestic householders. You need to have a council tax band. And we don't cover leasehold premises over 4 flats. So we don't cover businesses, we don't cover big blocks of flats. Now, this lovely bubble diagram, which luckily you've got a massive screen so you can actually read it a bit better. I'm just going to point out a couple of things. Firstly, since we were established, 4 out of 5 households now have, that have had previous flood claims, have seen a price reduction of more than 50% on their insurance. And 98% of people with prior flood claims can now get quotes from 10 or more insurers. That was about 2 before, so massively increased the availability. So, how do we get to 2039 when we leave? And our first quinquennial review. Now, when I joined Flood Re, it took me about 6 weeks to be able to say quinquennial, a government term. Basically, every 5 years, we have to do a review about how we are hitting our purpose, and we do that with the government, with DEFRA, and any changes we make have to go through Parliament. And we've just finished our first one. So, what do we need to do to get to 2039? Well, we've put 3 buckets together. Our first bucket is that we have to reduce the risk of flooding. So doing that is investing in flood defences, making sure that we are lobbying for extra funding for flood defences, working with the Environment Agency to make sure that they put the flood defences where they're needed. We also did research on the maintenance of flood defences, because quite often they'll get money for capital spend, for new, but won't look after the ones that are already there. And our research showed that for every £1 in maintaining flood defences, you're going to save £7 in flood claims and capital spend. So it makes sense, obviously, to maintain what you've already got, to develop with flood risk in mind. Now, we did have a really good opportunity. We were going to have a planning white paper. Well, we had a planning white paper. We were going to have a planning bill. That got scrapped. Michael Gove came in and said, I know, we'll do a regeneration and levelling up bill. Well, now we've got Liz Truss, and it looks like that's going, and is now going into a growth bill. So we are waiting to see how we can lobby for the right things in that bill, so that when people are developing, they are thinking about flood risk, that local authorities have enough capacity to be able to deal with planning applications and, really challenge the developers. Because what we do know now is that there just isn't the capacity within the departments. And then our second bucket is reducing the damage and cost of flooding. Now that's when our property flood resilience comes into play, and improving not just properties but also community resilience. And then our last one, which is achieving an effective market. So if we do these couple of things and we improve our flood modelling and we know exactly where the highest risks are, then we should be able to smoothly exit the market in 2039 and everybody be happy. That's the theory. We also need to work out, we call this our peer. And the people that stand here are the people that no matter what, if all of that's done, they are still going to be at such high risk of flooding that they need something else. That by Flood Re leaving the market, they're still not going to be able to have affordable flood insurance. So what we can do for those. We think there's about, we don't actually have a number yet, but there's probably about a couple 100,000 in the country that live in like one water lane. But yes, we need to identify those people and find out what we can do for those at the very, very highest risk. So, our quinquennial review. I won't go through it all, because quite frankly, it's all quite boring about levies and how we invest our money. But the most exciting thing about our quinquennial review was that we were able to launch on the 1st of April, with ministerial approval, Build Back Better. We actually been calling it Build Back Better well before Joe Biden came along with it, and Boris, so we've stuck with it. So what Build Back Better does is If you have an insurance policy with an insurer who signs up to the scheme, and I'll go into a little bit more of that in a minute, then when you are flooded and you're making a claim, you can claim up to an extra £10,000 on top of your normal flood claim to put flood resilient repairs in. This, I know it doesn't sound much, but is a real change of how insurance works. One of the main principles of insurance is reinstatement, not betterment. So you shouldn't, in theory, when you make an insurance claim, whatever it is, be put back into the same situation you were before. You shouldn't be better off than you were before. But us at Flood Re, we know that the only way that we're going to be able to make strides forward in property flood resilience is by giving people extra money to be able to do that. Again, just like your claim, if you're putting in a normal flood claim, you wouldn't deal with us, you deal with the insurance company, and they should say, and I'm sure Ian Gibbs, who's speaking after me, will talk a bit more about it, but you should be able to say, yes, I'd like a flood survey to see what would help my property. And it's no good saying everyone would benefit from a flood door, because every single property, as you know, has a different flood risk and are different, very unique properties. So we're really happy. It's not on here, but we've got 5 big insurers signed up now since April. And I'm hoping we'll have another 3 or 4 by the end of the year. So what that means is more and more of the insurance market is going to be offering this Build Back Better. It doesn't apply to any floods that have already happened. It will only apply to any floods going forward. I missed anything on there. But essentially, yeah, this is really important. We know that property flood resilience is not a silver bullet. It's not something that's going to make a huge difference overnight. We know that flood risk, managing flood risk is all about a jigsaw of everyone working together. So we work with Communities Prepared, who are speaking later. We work with flood forums, we work with the Environment Agency, DEFRA, we work with insurance companies to make sure that PFR, or property flood resilience, is just one of a big jigsaw of things that need to come together to be able to make our communities more flood resilient. We know that flood barriers and flood defences alone aren't going to help us. We are going to have to live with water. There's estimates that rainfall by 2050 will go up anything between 20 and 30% than we're already having. So as well as doing this to be able to cope with the now, we're kind of running to keep up because things are going to get worse. So it's, we need to do as much as we can to be able to recover more quickly. Nobody wants to be out of their house for 9, 12, 18 months. This is just a little bit more about Build Back Better. So it's just about that enables property owners to get up to £10,000 extra, gives peace of mind, and tries to protect families so that they're not out of their homes for months. So, Flood Re's future. We've seen this summer extreme weather. We've seen lots of droughts, we've seen fires across Europe. Last year, we saw massive floods during the summer. Some in London, but mainly in Germany, Belgium and France, where people lost their lives. We need to live with climate, not just floods. And so it's climate that we really need to start talking about, how we can look forward into the future and see how we're going to live. When we look at an aspirational home now, we know that cars are going to have to be electric by 2030, I think it is. We know that more people want to save money on electricity and also for the climate change. So people are looking at heat pumps and solar panels. And as well as that, we want people to be thinking, yes, I want to be able to reduce my bills in that way, but I also want to be able to help my property recover and be more protected. actually, gentleman in the red top over there brought in this smart air brick, which is brilliant. I go out on something called the Floodmobile quite often with a lady called Mary Dono, who I'm sure lots of you probably know. And I'm always talking about these. They're amazing. Such little things you can do to protect your properties. So with a flood, with an air brick, basically a smart air brick, you need it properly installed. I think they're only about £20–30. And when the flood water goes in, the balls go up and it closes it so water can't get in. Cheap things like non-return valves, toilet bungs, really help to stop getting sewage into your house, stop extra water coming in. Had a really interesting experience back in February where I visited Bewdley in Worcestershire, where people had just been flooded. And outside their home, this guy had a stable door. There was about a metre of water, but we were inside and he had puddles, literally puddles, which he had a puddle pump, and they're about £50 from Wicks, pumping it outside. And I left that night, took some videos and everything. Then the next day, he sent me a picture with thumbs up, watching his TV. He said, 24 hours and I was dry again. And lots of houses along this road had put simple measures in and were finding they had very little water and they were able to sweep up, clean, sanitise and then watch the TV again. I thought it's amazing because my first experience of floods were 2007, where I was seeing people that were out for 18 months living in caravans over Christmas, not being able to take their children to school because they were living however many miles away. You've heard all the stories. It's really horrible. So yes, so 2039, as I say, it is fast approaching and we only have a certain amount of time to make these changes. So one of the things that we do as Flood Re is spread the word of property flood resilience along with the Build Back Better's extra £10,000. We spend a lot of time, as I said, on the Floodmobile. If you haven't seen the Floodmobile, it's like a mobile home with over 50 flood resilient repairs inside. And so it's for resistance and recoverability. And it really is amazing. There's a virtual tour that you can do on the Oxcam Pathfinders website. Sorry.
Yes, and the next event is in March, on the 1st of October, so next Saturday basically, from 10 a.m. until 4. So for any questions, just ask me.
Come and see it next Saturday. I'm sure Mary will be there. It is really, if you're looking at what things can happen, to what you can put into your house, it really is good to go and see, especially as, you know, you think it's going to be ugly. You think, I'm going to have a stainless steel kitchen, I'm going to have horrible tiles on my floor, I'd look like a school or an industrial kitchen or something. But actually, it's not the case at all. And there's so many interesting things that can be done. I've seen one woman's house in York, and she had wood panelling up to about that high around her house. And she showed me that when it flooded, they actually all lifted up, went onto legs, and she put all her furniture on it. It was amazing. Just an amazing thing to do. There's so many interesting things out there. So yes, so how are we going to make success? Well, it's a collective effort. It's being positive. It's going around to see as many people as possible. It's working with government. It's persuading planners to plan properly, think about flood, think about climate. And yes, hopefully we take our purpose of making sure that the UK is a lot more flood resilient really seriously. So for our next quinquennial review, hopefully we'll move on even better than Build Back Better. But we really hope that it's a success. It's really in its early days. And I think that is, oh, thank you.